Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, we can just jump right in. I'm sure she'll join soon. All right,
Yeah,
well,
ready when you are.
thanks again for joining us. This is great. McCain is really the perfect company for this project, and I think you're the perfect candidate to tell us about it, just given your role. I was hoping you could just tell us a bit about your responsibilities as a sustainability strategist.
Yeah, so I specifically work in the North America Agriculture Department. So for me, I'm an agriculture and sustainability person, and I work really within the smart and sustainable sustainability goals. So a lot of work with regenerative agriculture, which is exciting because I get to work with bringing financial and technical assistance to growers for their adoption of regenerative agriculture practices, which is something that amplifies within our network. So we have like over 3,000 partnerships with growers globally, and our targets are to have all of our growers by 2030 somewhere on our regenerative agriculture framework, which is a standardized approach to regen ag. Probably from here on out, I'll call it regen ag just for the time's sake, but that's where we have 7 indicators, get our growers to adopt practices, we work with them, provide them support to adopt the practices. So that kind of positions me in the huge company of McCain's and our sustainability commitments.
That's awesome. Could you tell us about a project either you've been staffed on or just you're aware of that directly addresses the climate crisis?
Yeah, so there's so many ways to talk about this. Maybe I'll do a high level approach first. So, like I said, I work in smart and sustainable farming. We have 3 other high level approaches to sustainability as well, that just different people working on it, which would be resource efficient operations, thriving communities, and planet friendly food. So, within those, like resource efficient operations, that kind of targets a lot of our CO2 emissions, climate crisis in that way. But if I were to keep it to projects that I specifically work on, in our work with regenerative agriculture, we do a lot of work with reducing the synthetic inputs. So that might be more responsible, like integrating IPM, which is integrated pest management, that's protecting biodiversity, protecting our ecosystem. We take a holistic approach to farming, so an ecosystem-based approach. And then even with, responsible application of fertilizers, precision agriculture, those also really work with our nitrous oxide emissions and reducing our impact on the environment in that sense and climate crisis.
That's awesome. Great. I'll pass it off to Craig. You're next in the queue.
Okay, Craig,
Um,
hit me hard.
what are some of the tools and strategies that you and McCain's use to measure the impact of the different sustainability projects that you have in place?
So this is a very important question. I'm glad you put it on it because, with large scale global companies, sometimes that's the question that gets put under the rug because, there's a lot of data in place and we come up with these great definitions and frameworks, but, a consumer or somebody who is interested in sustainability is like, okay, what are you doing to track it? And we have these 2030, 2050, 2025 goals. What are you doing to track your progress? So for us, and I'll keep it to Regen Ag, just to be able to give you the nuance of the tools and strategies. So we collect data from our growers annually. Right now we use surveys and we're developing remote sensing technology, spatial data that we can apply globally. So there's a uniform standard. So in that sense, keep it really specific to cover cropping. So, after our potatoes, putting a cover crop into the ground, we're able to use government spatial data that has crop rotation histories and pair that against the survey. So our growers are like, okay, we put this, this, and this for the past 8 years of our rotation. Then we're able to connect to spatial data through the government and develop our own algorithms to verify that. So that's an example of how we take a granular approach to making sure that the metrics we collect are verified. We also pair with organizations like the SAI platform to ensure that we're measuring our metrics, they're verified, they're audited. That's kind of a really granular example.
Okay, perfect. And what are some of the steps that McCain uses to ensure the production process wastes as little as possible? And
Great.
are
Oh,
there any ways that you think this can be improved?
yes, definitely. So I'm not a production person. So I wouldn't be the best person to ask this question, but I do have one example that I think is helpful. So in the production process, obviously there are wastes. One of the wastes is, there's a formal word for it, but the word that best describes it in my head is like sludge. It's kind of like wastewater. We're actually able to extract nutrients from that and put that into fertilizer. So we'll apply that to fields nearby. So, we have production facilities. We typically source pretty local, farmers around the production, and then we're actually able to apply that sludge or that wastewater, extract the nutrients from it and put it onto the ground, and use that for fertilizer for our growers. So that kind of closes the loop a bit. I'm sure you learn about that in this class probably.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I'll fire off Liza's questions now. She's in Dominican. As a leader, how do you see McCain's role in promoting sustainability within the industry, and what strengths do you believe the company possesses to lead in this area?
This is a great question that I'm really happy to answer, because I do a lot of work with verification, audits, or just talking to people within the industry. And they're like, you know what? Once I learn more about what McCain's is doing, they'll say, I went to see, what other people in the industry are doing, or other companies, your competitors, for comparison, because that's a part of like the auditing process or the verifying process. And they're like, they're not doing anything. Well, they're not doing close to what we're doing. They're like, you're absolutely leading the charge, which we are, specifically within the potato industry, the potato processing. Our competitors, we are just light years above. We're leading the charge, maybe not light years above. Maybe that's not fair for me to say. But yeah, we're having a definition of regenerative agriculture that we use globally is, number one, like a huge step. It doesn't seem like it, but that's a massive step. Then having the framework, then providing financial and technical assistance to growers. Those are big things that we do, and to protect resilience and assured supply and our growers' livelihoods. So that would definitely be a strength. And then integrating sustainability into everything we do. Adam, I'm sure you've heard this a million times. Craig, this hopefully is exciting news for you. But one of our objectives is to have sustainability in our DNA. So that means we're not a sustainability team somewhere in one place of the world that tries to, connect to all the other McCain sectors. No, pretty much every department, there's somebody who's, an environment person, an efficiency person, a sustainability person.
Awesome, perfect. And her second question is, can you share instances where McCain has demonstrated a commitment to sustainability and environmental responsibility?
So pretty much everything I've said touches about this a little bit. That kind
Yeah,
of,
I was going to say it's getting a little repetitive. Sorry.
yeah, no worries. Demonstrating a commitment to sustainability. Yeah, I kind of, maybe to back it up a little bit, we do a lot of work with grower livelihoods, protecting assured supply, resilience. We want to ensure that soil health is protected. That's more on the smart and sustainable farming side. When it comes to thriving communities, I'm going to use this. This is just a nature of our operations, is that we work in a lot of rural areas. So I'm from a rural area. I'm from a McCain's place, and to have McCain's operating in a rural area and to ensure that they're contributing to that economy, that really is a sustainable, really on the social side, it helps the community so much. And then McCain takes measures to ensure that they're, volunteering. We're huge on volunteering. So helping the community, supporting the economy, bringing people in, having people spend money in rural areas. Like, that's not something we can just look over. It has a really big impact.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Okay,
Craig, do you want to read off?
Read Miriam's. Her first one, I'm gonna read the second part of it because the first part is what you just answered. So, I'm gonna connect it back to the last question actually. What are some of the strengths of McCain's as a company that you believe get such successful results in the sustainability?
Definitely investing in it, having board support, investing in it, putting our money where our mouth is, putting the work for our commitments. Like, we do that. It's not one team trying to get all the other teams to organize it. Like, we put it in the objectives of people. So for example, take it really specific, agronomy work. Typically that's not necessarily related to sustainability. It's not necessarily related to overall resilience. For us, it's an objective. Yeah, we put it right in there. So yeah, investing in it, ensure that's an objective on everybody's table, making sure sustainability is in our DNA, connects to the work that everybody does, putting in the work to meet the commitments. That's kind of why the success comes. And then I can just speak in my personal experience, like I've never been in an organization where people work so hard to meet these objectives.
And when's the time you felt the most proud of the work and innovations you've been doing with McCain's?
This actually really ties in with yesterday. So when I first started at McCain's working on, so financial assistance is a huge part of bringing support to growers to implement new practices. Specifically for potato growers, financial assistance through like grants and funding can be difficult, especially in the US. We have a few opportunities in Canada that were just because of the nature of, industry partnerships, relationships, the diversity of growers, we couldn't deliver in the same way to the US. So we were like, okay, let's look to grants. There's a ton of grant money out there for sustainable agriculture in the US. Let's start to develop that muscle. That's not something we had done in North America before successfully. So I was able to work on a proposal to, this is again in the weeds, the NRCS RCPP project, which is government funding. And it's difficult to start from the bottom, put in the work, and put in an application for something you haven't before, just new to the company, putting the people together, getting the work done, understanding grants. And yesterday it was announced that we got the award. So that's like $7 million straight to growers for financial assistance and technical assistance. So, and we've talked to quite a few people in the grant industry in the US, and it's really difficult to deliver that assistance to potato growers because, it's a high risk, high reward crop. So sometimes they do make over, like there's incomes, and sometimes they do make over that. And that kicks them out from granting, and then they lease their land or they rent their land. So a lot of funding opportunities they get kicked out of. So definitely that's something to be proud of, that we get to do that for our potato growers in the US.
Okay. What are you most excited for in regards to the future of McCain's?
Definitely most excited for. So McCain's, one thing to say about it, and I'm sure a lot of global companies are like this, and Adam can attest to it. It's just projects on top of projects. Like within 2 weeks, you're like, oh my goodness, I've changed so much. I've done this, and this. I'm on this, and this. So I can't even imagine within 6 months, within 2 years, within 5 years, what we'll be working towards, because we hold ourselves to a higher standard than the industry does. Like that's because we're doing work ahead of it. We have to hold ourselves to a threshold to our commitments in a way that the rest of the world isn't yet, but they will. So I'm really excited for the work that we continue to do, and learning from lessons learned. That's a big one. So everything, like mistakes isn't really the word, but any like barrier we hit, we learn a new way and apply it to the next one of, okay, how do we learn from that and make sure that we're incorporating that into, our next step. So I can't even say what specifically I'm excited for. I'm just excited to do it.
That's a great answer. I don't think Sylvia's going to join, so I think we can just fire off her questions, Craig.
Okay.
How does McCain Foods ensure that the knowledge and best practices developed at the farm of the future are disseminated and adopted by other farmers or agricultural stakeholders?
This is a great question. I really like being able to tie into the specifics. So our farms of the future, our first one is on the east coast of Canada, where McCain's originated from. I'll speak to that one because I've worked on it. I've been boots on the ground there. But we do have a second one in South Africa. And then the third one, I believe, will be in Europe. Location hasn't been announced or anything, potentially probably in Europe to round out, our grower networks. So we disseminate the information learned at these farms of the futures within the grower networks. So at farms of the future, they test out the risky stuff. You do not want to ask, you don't want to, our Reg Ag approach is voluntary. So we don't demand our growers do anything, but we don't want the risk to fall on our growers for doing innovative practices. Farm of the Future is one of those places where, we take on the risk. We disseminate that information from growers, not only what works, but what doesn't work. Honestly, sometimes what doesn't work is more valuable. So in doing that, we host days where growers can come in. They're like field days, That's pretty much, that's what they're called, field days. Growers, you don't have to be a McCain's grower. Anybody's invited to come and yeah, share results of the trials. And then on top of that, publishing research.
Awesome. And her second question kind of ties into that. What are some long-term goals for the farms of the future with respect to climate action and responsible production?
So the number one goal would be to be, well, first carbon neutral and then carbon positive. So sequestering carbon. But I think that's, a simple way to answer that. It's just carbon neutral is the goal that they're working on right now. And then figuring like formula for sequestering carbon on a scale that can make them carbon positive. And then responsible production, really that just ties with giving them back in the way that you take. So it relates to soil, like making sure that you're giving back to the soil everything that we take from it in order to produce.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Well, that's all we have prepared here today. Yeah, I'm sorry the others couldn't make it, but we'll pass on the recording. And thank you so much for your time today. This has been super helpful. You gave some awesome answers, and looking forward to putting these into a poster. That's our assignment.
Yeah, good luck with it. Good luck with school. Hi, everybody that I didn't meet. Good luck with your studies as well. Really excited about this opportunity just for, I wish I had that when I was in school to be able to, partner with students and other organizations, learn about sustainability and pass on to each other things you learn, things that don't work, and your career goals as well. And hopefully somebody is so excited about the things they've learned today, they want to come to McCain Foods. We do have internships available this summer. So if you want to work on regenerative agriculture, please look that up.
Yeah, I'd like to come back. So
Adam, then you get your application in right now. You'll be hired. Absolutely.
I've been applying, but
you have?
yeah, I applied for my old job actually, and they staffed someone else on it. So it's tough, but still applying. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for your time. This has been great.
Yes,
Great. Awesome.
It was
Nice to meet you, Craig.
nice to meet you too.
Thank you, Hannah. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.